Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our main event! Hosted by Eric McMahon, it's Cageside with John Morgan!
And it is fight week now. UFC 281, Madison Square Garden, New York City. Man, I am pumped up. Go ahead, check us out. We kind of briefly touched on it last week in the archives. We were so revved up. We got a head start on it. Check us out in the archives. You can see us on YouTube, grindcitymedia.com. Listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Basically, wherever you get your streaming needs, we will live there. But without further ado, I'm so excited. Let me go ahead and bring in my co-host. You can find him on Twitter at JohnMorgan_MMA. He was in the Apex Center this week for UFC Fight Night. John, what's up, pal?
I'm looking forward to UFC 281 just like you, man. It's a crazy week for me personally, man. I got a lot going on before I even get to Madison Square Garden, so it's a crazy one. But how can you not be hyped up about UFC 281? I mean, this past week at the Apex, as you mentioned, yeah, we had a fight night. It was fun. It was entertaining. But, I mean, I think even there, we were all looking forward to this. It's always big when you go to Madison Square Garden, but this fight at the top of the bill between Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira, it just captures the imagination. It's got everything going. It's got all the flavor. It's got the storylines. It's got the skill. These are the fights we live for in this sport.
This is, and we said UFC 280. We just can't wait to see there. But there was this elephant in the room, and this elephant was Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira. Main event, New York City, and this was hanging over everything, and we are finally here. And guess what? To get ready for it, I went ahead and watched the Countdown special this morning, and man, it got me juiced.
Yeah, the UFC does such a great job of storytelling. I mean, they do a really good job at that. I mean, that's what they are doing, right? I mean, they're trying to get you hyped. They're trying to tell you why the fights matter, and they do a great job. But this one just lends itself perfectly to that, right? I mean, if you set the storyline out, you got the dominant champion in Israel Adesanya, the guy that's literally just lapping the field. I mean, beating the number one contenders twice. I mean, looking like he's just a dominant figure in the sport on his way to being the greatest middleweight of all time. So there's that guy. But then who's looming in the shadows? Alex Pereira, the guy that not only beat you twice, but knocked you out. Now, granted, a different sport. It was kickboxing. It's bigger gloves. There's no grappling, all those things. But still, the man that has beat you. So Alex Pereira came to the UFC. Was he rushed to the title shot? Absolutely, he was rushed to the title shot because there's a storyline here. He is the boogeyman. He is that man that owns the knockout win over Israel Adesanya. I love what the UFC did here. I love the fact that they, again, kind of crafted Alex Pereira to get to the top as quickly as possible. Now, Alex still had to go out there and win the fights, and he won big. I mean, beating Sean Strickland, no easy task. He did it in style. So, listen, he got the wins he needed to get. Did he knock off every contender on the rung up the ladder on the way up? No, he didn't.
Did he have to?
That's what I'm saying. He should have to.
Okay, so listen, we are getting way ahead of ourselves here. You can tell just the excitement that we got going on. Like, literally before we started broadcasting, I said, hey, we're so excited, but we got to touch on UFC Fight Night. And then we just blow right into UFC 281. But hey, that's what we do here off the cuff. We're at the end of the day, we host a podcast. You write about it. You cover it. We're just fans. That's what we are at the end of the day. But in the purpose of doing things correctly, let's jump in. Let's jump back. The Apex Center, Saturday night, UFC Fight Pass. UFC Fight Night on ESPN Plus. What do we need to take away from that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a fun night of fights. If you didn't get a chance to watch it, it's probably worth, checking out the highlights. You had a lot of finishes on the night, so it was entertaining.
9 of 11.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a lot of fun. I mean, that's what we live for. I mean, not that you can't have great fights that are decisions, but everybody loves the knockouts, the submissions. I mean, that's what mixed martial arts is all about. We had a lot of them, so it was a fun night. But really, the one thing you're walking away with is Amanda Lemos with the upset win over Marina Rodriguez, and just looked phenomenal. I mean, just fantastic. I'll be honest with you, I thought Marina Rodriguez was going to win this fight. I thought that she'd probably take home a decision that, her movement, her speed, all those things are going to be too much, but not for Amanda Lemos, who, by the way, had trouble getting into the United States from Brazil. She was delayed, had to sleep a night in the airport. She was talking about, it working out in her hotel room so she could just stay ready. I mean, so I had to deal with some adversity, but then came in and just looked absolutely fantastic, and did get the finish in that one as round. Just a big right hand in the third round, stunned Marina Rodriguez, and then she swarmed with strikes and got the standing TKO. I thought the stoppage was good, but really more so than any discussion of that, it's just the fact that she inserted herself into the title picture. And that is very relevant with the UFC 281, because as much as we're talking about Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira, which really is, the crown jewel of the event, there is another title fight on there, and it's the women's strawweight title fight, which is Amanda Lemos' division. So you have Carla Esparza putting her belt on the line against Zhang Weili, who is a massive favorite in the fight. And then you have Amanda Lemos, who just got this win, who is now in the discussion to potentially face the winner of that. You still have Rose Namajunas kind of hovering out there as well, who's always in the title discussion. But this was a big moment for Amanda Lemos to really make a statement, like I said, insert herself into that title picture.
UFC Fight Night is behind us. Neil Magny, most significant strikes in UFC history, most wins in the welterweight division. Like, listen, awesome. Future episode, we'll dive into that. But this week is all about UFC 281. It is finally here. And as I said, I watched the countdown, and it was amazing. I got chills right now. Let's start at the top of the card. The champion, 23-1, and his only one loss in his MMA career was when he went up a division to try and become a double champ. And let's be honest, he didn't get outclassed in that fight. He got taken down, held down, couldn't get back up, rinse and repeat. So this guy, Izzy, is just unbelievable. But to your point, he is taking on the man who beat him not once, but twice in a kickboxing match. Alex Pereira, take it away. Set the stage for us. Oh man, I'm pumped.
I know, it's so funny. I mean, this is one of the biggest fights of the year, if not the biggest fight of the year. And again, for a lot of reasons, the title's on the line. As you said, Israel Adesanya is on his way to becoming the greatest middleweight of all time. I mean, he's dominant, though. The one loss, as you said, just moving up to light heavyweight, not a great fight by any stretch of the imagination, but at middleweight, truly lapping the field. I mean, beating guys like Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, I mean, the top contenders more than once. So it's such a refreshing thing to see, a guy that wants to stay busy and that wants to face the absolute top contenders over and over. But we've been wondering who can really challenge him, because if he's beating the number one guy, the number two guy, the number three guy, if he's beating them with relative ease, who's going to come and potentially interrupt this title reign? And then you say, whoa, wait a minute. Before this guy came to MMA, there's a dude that knocked him out in another sport that beat him twice. And yes, Alex Pereira. And Alex said, you know what? I'm going to come to that sport and I'm going to beat you there as well. And Alex, I mean, just an absolutely scary dude. I have no idea how this dude makes 185 pounds. He is massive, and he packs all kinds of power. He just needs to touch you once. He's this just Brazilian absolute wrecking machine. And again, knocked Israel Adesanya out in a kickboxing match. Now, Israel Adesanya will be quick to tell you, hey, go back and watch that fight. I was winning that fight. Yes, he caught me, but I was winning that fight.
He gave Alex a standing 8 count, to which he took, which Izzy had a lot to say about it. In Sao Paulo, in Alex Pereira's hometown, he was on the rope, stumbling, was hurt badly. Ref jumped in, standing 8 count. That's what you do in kickboxing and boxing, right? It's not out of the realm of doing it. But to Izzy's point, he's saying he gave him a break. If that standing 8 count was not there, I would have finished him.
And it's a fair point. It's 100% accurate. I mean, this is a completely different sport. So, that I think that's what's here is how much does that history in kickboxing apply? And a lot of people will say, well, it does, but it doesn't. I mean, it has to factor in at least a little bit psychologically. Like for Israel Adesanya, who absolutely believes in himself, but there still has to be a little sliver that goes, that guy did knock me out. And for Alex Pereira, whereas in other fighters are getting in there with Israel Adesanya and they're saying, man, this dude, he's beating everybody. He has this insane winning streak. It has to bolster your confidence a little bit that you go, yeah, but I did knock him out before. But again, it is a different sport. It's different gloves, that's the big part of that changes everything, man. Those big gloves change not only the way you attack, but also the way you defend. I mean, you can actually use the big gloves as a little bit of a frame where you can't do that with mixed martial arts gloves. Then we're not even talking about the grappling aspect of it as well. Will Israel Adesanya factor in some wrestling? Will he factor in some jiu-jitsu as well to try to take it away from being an entirely stand-up game? We don't know. That's what we're going to wait to see. But that's why all the intrigue is here. That's why, because there's so much. What do you think? Is this? I don't know. It's an amazing fight.
Okay, so to set the stage even further, Alex Pereira, he is training day in and day out with Glover Teixeira, right? And so we kind of touched on this last week. Is Adesanya going to implore a mixed martial arts game and take it completely just out of a strictly kickboxing match? But guess what? You can't say that this hasn't been tried before. He's training day in and day out with the former and possibly soon to be once again light heavyweight champion of the world in Glover Teixeira. You don't think they're working on this every day? You don't think that he knows it's the easiest path to every opponent victory against him? Of course he does.
100% he does. And the other thing, too, is that, look, I do think Israel Adesanya's grappling game is a little bit underrated just because he's such a master of striking. I mean, we've seen some decent jiu-jitsu. We've seen some decent wrestling over the years from Israel Adesanya. But the other thing, too, is, that's not really Israel's game. So on the one hand, you say, well, you could take Alex Pereira out of his element if you really turn to the grappling, but you also put yourself out of your element in a little bit of ways as well. If you're really good at something, if you have your go-to and you try to change it up entirely, then now all of a sudden you're not fighting within yourself. You're not fighting your style. You're not feeling your comfort. You're not feeling your rhythm. And so I don't know that Israel Adesanya can turn entirely to just a grappling-based game because I don't know that he would actually execute that in the proper way. I don't know that he would be Israel Adesanya, if you understand what I'm saying. So I don't know that he's going to do that. Yes, it would negate the power, which you do want to negate that big left hand of Alex Pereira because it is dangerous. But I don't know that necessarily turning entirely to grappling is the way to do it.
And let's be honest, if grappling isn't a first go-to for you, the tax on your body to grapple is not a little bit more. It's exponentially more on you. And a lot of people say like, well, I'm proficient in jiu-jitsu, I'm proficient in kickboxing, I'm proficient in boxing. Name a discipline, wrestling. The ones that are great and that can do it fluidly know the transitions between them, right? I can't recall a time that I've seen Izzy dive for a takedown. Have you?
No, absolutely not. So that's why I say if he turns to that immediately, he's not going to be comfortable within himself. And exactly as you said, taxing on the body as well. That's the other thing. Over the course of potentially 25 minutes, there's times that you need to take an active rest, right? Like you get yourself into a position where you know that there's not so much stress. And when you do something repeatedly, whether it be grappling, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whether it be just striking, those moments where you can be like, okay, I'm calm within myself here. I can take an active rest. I'm not exerting myself because you can't go 100% for 25 minutes. It just, your body won't hold up to that. You have to find moments where you can kind of recoup a little bit. And so all these little things, all these little factors are why there's so many question marks around this. And listen, I mean, can Israel Adesanya beat him in a purely stand-up game? I think he can. He's that master of space and distance and movement and defense. But Alex Pereira has that one thing, that one shot that it just lands once. He can be outclassed for 3 rounds, 4 rounds, and just land the one. So that's why.
Okay, but so we're saying Izzy's a master of distance and speed and power and in and out. Guess what? Alex Pereira is as well, right? So let's go down the accolades. This guy is an 8-time Glory world champion. He was the first ever champ in Glory. So everything that Izzy's great at is not a deficiency for Alex here.
100%. You said it. That's why I think so many people are leaning towards Alex Pereira in this matchup because exactly that. It's like, hold on. All the things that makes Israel Adesanya so great, Alex Pereira possesses as well. Plus, again, that knockout power. Adesanya is not really known for having that one shot, one kill type power, right? It's more about, hey, I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to outpoint you. I'm going to make sure that you can't touch me, that you can't find me. Whereas Alex Pereira just needs to land that one shot on you and the night is over. And that's why a lot of people are really picking Alex Pereira in this matchup, and it's understandable. That power is a game changer, man. all in Madison Square Garden as well. I mean,
the Mecca, the Mecca.
On.
So here's the deal. One of the things that you just said, in and out, Izzy's got this, phenomenal way of going in and out using range, speed, distance, power, all the above. 99 times out of the 100, he is the bigger fighter. Not this time. That's why we say 99% of the time. This is the one time he is not the bigger fighter. Guess what? He's got a half an inch reach advantage. Half an inch. They are both 6'4" at 185. That is how either one of them makes these weight classes is beyond me. But to your point where Izzy is so good at touching him, it's because his range and distance usually is exponentially bigger. Not this time.
No, it's funny because if you just look at the matchup, you say, okay, they're both 6'4", they're both going to come in at 185 pounds. Well, they're going to come in at 185 pounds at the weigh-ins. On fight night, once they've rehydrated, Alex Pereira is a different kind of 185 pounds. And it's wild. Even with both of them standing at 6'4", I mean, just standing beside them, you get a different sense of how large they are. Israel Adesanya, big dude, but rangy, kind of like that Anderson Silva-esque build where you think of him as kind of lean and lanky and rangy. Alex Pereira is just thick. I mean, he's again, I have no idea how he cuts down to the weight. I mean, it's not easy on him, that's for sure. I mean, he does have some difficult weight cuts, but he rehydrates back up, and he's just strong and big. And to your point, man, I mean, just can do everything that Israel Adesanya can do, has the size, has everything to deal with it. I'm telling you, to me, like everything on paper, honestly, everything on paper to me says you should be leaning towards Alex Pereira. He can strike just as well. He's got the power. He's got the one shot that he can put you out. He has the 2 wins. Everything on paper to me says you should be leaning Alex Pereira, but how do you pick against Israel Adesanya at this point in his career? And that's why this one, as you play it out in your mind, you see it one way and then you see it the other, and you see it one way and then you see it the other. And that's why it's so intriguing.
But Vegas sees it for Adesanya, right?
Slightly.
Vegas is seeing it right now. Not a huge margin, but I looked at it right before we started recording this. Israel Adesanya minus 165, Alex Pereira plus 140. That's not a 105. That's not a pick 'em though. Let's be perfectly clear. That's not in Vegas standards. That's not a pick 'em fight. A pick 'em fight would be like 115, 105. So they're giving, I guess it's not a pick 'em, but they are giving that slight statistical edge to Israel Adesanya here.
Well, and I think it has to. I mean, you look at the records, 23-1 versus 6-1. What does that tell you? It just talks about the experience. Again, Alex Pereira was rushed into this position. There's no question about it, because there's a huge storyline between these two. There's a reason these two are fighting each other, and it's because of their history. I think you give the edge to Israel Adesanya because he's been there. He's been in these huge main events. He's headlined stadium shows before. He's dealt with all you have to deal with in the build up to it, all the extra media, all the added attention,
5 rounds,
5 rounds as well. I mean, he's dealt with all those things. So I think that's why Vegas is certainly leaning towards Adesanya. And that's why I say, to me, I'm leaning towards Adesanya as well. But again, as you start, going through the tick marks of, okay, well, who's got the better striking, who's got the better, as you go through things, I mean, you have to give Alex Pereira a legitimate chance of winning this fight. But Adesanya has been there. He's done that. He's lived this life. He's motivated, to kind of exercise this demon from his past as well. And he's done it on the stage. So I do lean slightly towards Israel Adesanya. But if you tell me that, hey, you're going to wake up late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and you're going to hear that, that left hand landed and we got a new champ, you wouldn't be shocked. You wouldn't be shocked. This is and that's what's crazy about this is, like, there are other fights within the middleweight division that I don't think Alex Pereira wins. I mean, there are guys that have great grappling, great wrestling that are going to give him problems. But this, to me, is not about, how long can Alex Pereira reign atop the middleweight division. It is he the guy to beat Israel Adesanya, because nobody's been able to do it thus far. And he absolutely can be.
So I was thinking about this morning and went back to this, kickboxing versus MMA question. And let's be honest, I think this is going to play out as a kickboxing match. That's the way I think it'll play out. It's their strengths. Like, listen, if I'm Izzy and I think I can employ more of a mixed martial arts game, which I don't even think he can, truth be told, just because of the size difference. And if you don't think that Alex Pereira is getting the chops that he needs training with Glover, I'm going to call you an idiot, right? Because he's getting those chops. But with that being said, if it plays out as a kickboxing match, who's been in the kickboxing game a little bit longer? Who's less removed from that kickboxing only style? Man, this is, I've changed my pick 5 times since we've started talking about this now.
That's what I'm saying. When you start talking it out, when you start speaking, because I agree with you, I do think this is going to be a stand-up affair. As we kind of touched on earlier, should Israel Adesanya turn to the grappling game? Maybe. I mean, I do think that there are a lot of really strong grapplers that Alex Pereira doesn't beat because of that, because they're going to be able to out-grapple him. But if that's not really your game at its core, don't be trying new things at the highest level. You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
in a UFC championship fight is not the time to test some things out to see how they work. No, you got to go to what you're best at. And so because of that, I agree with you. Now, if for whatever reason there's some scrambles, maybe there's, somebody slips on a kick and now you've got an opportunity to jump on top of them and maybe take the back or something like that. Like, absolutely. And that happens, right? We see that happen in MMA fights. Guys will throw a kick or whatever. They'll slip a little bit. They'll lose their footing. So in opportunities like that, absolutely, I think Adesanya could potentially turn to his grappling. If you've got a chance to jump on Alex Pereira's back because he turns it to you because he slipped, he's off balance, he stumbled or whatever, you should absolutely do it. But, don't be shooting doubles from distance. And that I just don't see Israel Adesanya doing that. That's not his game. So I do think this is mainly a kickboxing matchup. And again, when you start to play that out, you say, well, okay, well, hold on. They have kickbox twice, and who won twice? It was Alex Pereira, including the knockout. So that's why I say, as you play this thing out, to me, you should be leaning towards Alex. That's why I think the odds are as close as they are. But Adesanya is that cut above. He does have those intangibles in there, and intangibles do mean something. And, mentality and psychology does mean more in fights than I think people realize sometimes. It's so much not just about the physical side of it. So that's why the fact that you could go back and forth during a conversation about the fight is why this is so anticipated.
Well, and I think because of the threat of the other things is what lends you to Adesanya. That's why I think where Vegas is leaning, because Alex Pereira coming into this, he has to prepare for it all.
Mm.
To Israel Adesanya, I don't think he has to prepare for all of that. Right? And so the threat is there of the grappling, the clinching against the fence, the holding against the fence, just the jockeying for position. I really don't think Israel Adesanya has to prepare for that.
No, not at all. He knows what he's looking at. He doesn't have to be worried about that. He's not worried about Alex Pereira shooting on him. A takedown's not coming from the other side. You know what's coming. Alex Pereira's trying to, set up the big left hand. So, that's really all you have to be prepared for. It's going to be intriguing because what happens in a lot of Israel Adesanya fights is you see guys kind of freeze up a little bit, right? Like they say they're going to run. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to make it a dog fight. We're going to get into a brawl. And then they get in there and the little feints, the little hesitations, the moves, the way Adesanya moves, it freezes guys up. But, will he be able to do that with Alex Pereira? I don't think so. I don't think so. Given the amount of ring time that they have together, given the fact that he does have those victories, that he does have that knockout, that he is going to have that confidence, I don't think he'll freeze up. But again, you never know. This is a different sport. Things are a little bit different. Again, the gloves change everything in terms of how you can defend and how you can set things up. So we'll see. But I do think that we're at least going to have a fight here. I can't imagine that Alex Pereira is going to go in there and freeze up maybe the way, and again, I don't say that disrespectfully to say when a guy like Jared Cannonier or, who you expected to go in there and just be an absolute machine, Paulo Costa, you know what I mean? They go in there and they freeze up. And again, I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just the reality. If you go back and watch it, you'll see like, wait a minute, these dudes were straight marauders, as they were making their way up the ranks. And then they got in there with the champ, and something about the way he moves, something about the feints that he sets, something about the traps that he sets, it slows guys down, and all of a sudden you don't see the output that you see from before. I don't think that'll happen with Alex Pereira, given their history together. He's been in there. He knows what that feels like. He knows how that moves. But we will see, because it is a different sport.
But we will see.
We will see.
Saturday night, UFC 281. But guess what? We have more fights on the card. This card is absolutely stacked. Co-main event, championship fight. Got to be the co-main event, even though most people are probably looking to the fight right underneath that as like the real people's co-main event. But Carlos Esparza, Zhang Weili, title on the line. Carlos Esparza, 2-year point. Huge. As the champion, huge betting odds. So much that even on the UFC site this morning, they didn't have the odds on there. I had to look it up on a FanDuel account. Carlos Esparza is a plus 280 dog. Zhang Weili minus 390 favorite. That for in a championship fight is massive and unheard of.
It's insane. The line is absolutely insane. The disrespect for Carlos Esparza will just never stop. I mean, listen, it's understandable. You know, you think the way that she carries herself in the cage is always funny, right? She looks like she's almost afraid to be in there, and the fight starts, and she's leaning against the cage, and it looks like you do realize there's a cage fight about to break out here, right? You understand what you're about to be in. But, you know, she finds ways to win fights. You know, a two-time champion and was able to beat Rose Namajunas last time against big odds as well. Now, granted, the fight was not good. It was not entertaining whatsoever, but she won the fight. And now you got Zhang Weili, the former champ, who is absolutely just a dangerous striker who, if you saw this video come out of her picking up Francis Ngannou at the Performance Institute, the 115-pound contender picking up the 290-pound Francis Ngannou. I mean, absolutely insane. So the odds are crazy. I hate to say it because I don't necessarily disagree that Zhang Weili should be the favorite here, but Carlos Esparza is just the little engine that could, you know, in her MMA career. Like, she just finds ways to win fights that you don't think she should. So I lean towards Zhang Weili here, but if you tell me that Carlos Esparza is going to institute some wrestling, she's going to shock the world again, I'd believe you. She has that in her.
Well, she's shown it time and time again, and the way she wins is she makes things ugly. She got in Thug Rose, very off night at the office in that fight. But how much of it was Carlos Esparza? She's shown to make exciting fighters boring, right? And the threat of wrestling does that to a lot of strikers. Now, you know, Zhang Weili, she's coming in, she's looking to knock heads off. That's what she does. She's completely well-rounded. Remains to be seen what is here. But to your point, the minus 390 favorite, this is a dog or pass, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I you know, to lay that kind of money on anybody in a mixed martial arts fight, to me is very difficult to do because anything can happen in a fight. And Carlos Esparza, as you said, it's kind of like Israel Adesanya. You say, why do all these guys go in there and kind of freeze up when they face Israel Adesanya? And then you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, it's because of things Israel Adesanya is doing. Not that everybody's having an off night over and over every time. And Carlos Esparza does the same thing, right? She just makes good fighters not look good. You know, they struggle with her grappling game. So that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, ultimately, if this fight stays on the feet, there's no way Carlos Esparza wins it. And if the fight turns into a grappling match, I don't think Zhang Weili wins it. So this is really going to come down to who's able to implement their style. But to your point, yes, dog or pass for me. I can't lay that kind of money on a mixed martial arts fight, man. It's just a lot to do. Anything. There's so many things that can happen in an MMA fight. I just don't see certainties like that.
Hey, listen, Vegas knows something though, right? I mean, but if there's money to be made, this is where I always say there's money to be made on UFC fights, on MMA fights, because I don't think Vegas has caught up to the game as much as they say in like football, basketball, baseball, whatnot, what have you.
It's better. I mean, look, back in the day that you could really make some money on MMA lines before people started really getting educated. I think the lines are better now than they used to be. So it's a tougher challenge, but you're right. I do think there's still money to be made. Much easier, I think, to have some knowledge and over the odds as to, like, man, NFL and NBA, as you said. It's amazing how good those lines are nailed in sometimes and how tough it is to beat those lines, each week in and week out. But I think you can do it in MMA.
Yeah, that's why when I bet it's straight money line, it's hard to beat those odds. But now, the People's Co-Main event. This is one that the buildup has been weird. Mortal enemies, turned friends, off the record, still mortal enemies. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Michael Chandler. UFC 281 live. Madison Square Garden, New York City. Does it get better than a matchup like this? That is not even a main event.
It's crazy, man. I mean, this could absolutely be a main event of a fight night. Hell, you could probably even headline a pay-per-view with this if you wanted to. No title on the line. Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. You're absolutely right. This is the fight that everybody outside of the main event is the one that everybody's loving. But outside of the main event, I mean, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler is just one of the fights of the year. Potentially absolute fireworks for as long as it lasts. The fact that it's a 15-minute fight means these dudes can go straight at it from the start and not worry about having to pace themselves for a 5-round affair. I mean, both of them at the absolute highest level of the sport. And you said they've had a little bit of war words, and then they've kind of backed off the little war words, but then there's still a little bit of prevailing undercurrent under the scenes. It's got a little flavor to it. But this is just two of the best dudes in the lightweight division, and they're all action fighters, man. So this one should be good for as long as it lasts. Absolutely cannot wait for this fight.
28-7-1 Dustin Poirier, 23-7 Michael Chandler, literally training miles apart from each other down in South Florida. You got to go see both training facilities. You got to see both of these guys prepare for this. What does this do? Like, this is a very weird fight for me. Not from the standpoint of an entertainment value. I understand it. But from where does the winner go from here?
That's the difficult part to make of it. And luckily the fight's so good that it doesn't matter. You know, a lot of times what really makes a fight is the stakes of the fight. Is this a number one contender fight? Is this a championship fight? The winner of this one, we don't know. What it means is they stay relevant. What it means is they stay up at the top of the division. And truthfully, these two guys can face anybody. I mean, they really, you could match them up with anybody in the division. But as you said, we know that we've got, this new champion in Islam Makhachev. We know we've got Alexander Volkanovski moving up to 155 pounds to challenge for that title. So what does the winner here do? I mean, are they in line for a title shot? Not necessarily so, but it's a big one in terms of keeping them atop the division. But this is one of those fights that, and they're few and far between. Again, the stakes are normally what makes a fight, is knowing what's on the line. That's not what this fight is about. This fight is about two of the most absolutely entertaining dudes in the sport that, are going to go toe-to-toe. I mean, that's how they fight. They get in your face, and they absolutely make it a brawl. And this one is just about, excitement, pure entertainment, pure excitement from start to finish. Will the winner get a title shot? Probably not, but they're certainly not out of the realm of possibility. Both of them are right there. They have name power. They have the record. They have everything. So they're right there. It's just a matter of, kind of how the schedule works out, unfortunately. But fortunately, with this one, it doesn't matter. You just know it's going to be a damn good fight.
This really reminds me of back about a year ago, we had Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje lead off the main card of a pay-per-view, and it was fight of the night. And this reminds me exactly like that fight was setting up to be. It's like, who gives a damn who wins? Put these two guys in a cage together and let me just watch what happens.
That's it. That's exactly what this is. This is that fight all over again. And then how it turned out once the cage door closed. I think that's exactly how this one's going to turn out as well. It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be exciting. It's probably going to be on Fight of the Year list. And what does the winner get? We don't know. We don't care. We just know that for 15 minutes, we're going to be the winners. We're going to get to enjoy two of the absolute best mixed martial arts in the world going at it toe-to-toe.
Now, 3 rounds instead of 5. It's on the main card, not a main event, no title on the line. So it is 3 rounds, 15-minute fight. In a 15-minute fight, who do you give an edge to?
Oh, I think if you're just talking about who does that favor, I think it favors Michael Chandler, right? I mean, Michael Chandler is kind of known to be that explosive out of the gate. I mean, he's just this little ball of muscle and energy coming at you, but he can slow down a little bit late, whereas Dustin Poirier has shown that in that 5-round exchanges, man, he'll be the guy that's still there at the end of it. Like I said, when I was down in Florida at American Top Team, who was literally the last dude to walk out of the gym that day when all the lights were off, everybody else had filtered out? It was Dustin Poirier, because he's that guy that's there until the very end, but he doesn't get that opportunity here, and so he's got to turn it on quickly. So I think if you're just asking who does the 3 rounds favor, it favors Michael Chandler. Does that mean that he'll necessarily win the fight? It doesn't, but that is one thing that's weighing towards his side for sure.
I completely agree. I was kind of setting you up to knock that one out of the park. Here is what tilts it. Maybe I don't know. I could be completely wrong. Like again, I'm no expert here. I'm just like kind of super fan, I guess. Is Michael Chandler is an in and out explosive fighter. When Dustin Poirier does his best work, it is that methodical walking you down fight. Let's get into these exchanges in the pocket with nobody jumping out. That's kind of how we beat Justin Gaethje back in the day. It was that we're going to stand in the pocket and let's just see who the baddest man is. Michael Chandler typically doesn't fight that way. He uses his threat of the wrestling to explosively come in, land bombs, then explosively get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what he does. And I think he has the ability to do that here. Michael Chandler is, the slight underdog here, but I think he's a very, very live underdog. I mean, this to me is a coin flip fight. This to me should be a pick 'em. And so I see maybe a little bit of value in Michael Chandler. And again, going back to the fact that this is 3 rounds, he can do that and, only has to bank maybe those first 2 to be able to win a decision here. You don't have to get it to the end. So look, I like Michael Chandler as a very, very live underdog here, but I mean, doubt Dustin Poirier at your own risk, right? I mean, this dude has been doing it forever, man. He's been proving the naysayers wrong. He's got that dog in him, as they like to say. I mean, that's certainly everything you could ask for. He's a fighter's fighter. Dustin Poirier is a fighter's fighter, man. And that's why this one is so exciting as well. That's why this one is one that everybody's talking about. I mean, this literally could be fight of the year when it's all said and done. These two guys have that ability.
So you talked about odds. Dustin Poirier minus 175 favorite, Michael Chandler plus 150 underdog, meaning at minus 175, just to educate people who don't really know, if you're minus 175, if you put down $175 on Dustin Poirier, means you win $100. That's kind of how odds go. That's why, honestly, there's huge opportunities to make money in MMA if you're money lining on multiple fights too. You take a slight underdog, it shoots your parlay, value up. And especially, if you're kind of hip to the game, you can bet a lot of these and make a lot of money, or in my case, lose a lot of money just because I bet with my heart on my head sometimes.
That's the thing. You gotta be careful. You're not betting with your heart out there. And look, and that's the thing that I always try to tell people that are wagering is, look, there are some fights that like you should probably just stay away from. I mean, there's fights where you go, I don't actually know here, but look, put $5 on a fight. You don't have to put a couple dollars on it. It really will change your entertainment value. I mean, you have a couple, but now you're invested. Now you're not just watching. Now you got a side. You know what I mean? I think it does really change the entertainment value for you. You don't have to, bet the mortgage payment on it. They put a couple bucks down. You know what I mean? It really does make it a more fun watch, I think.
I do that a lot of time with MMA fights. I'll bet money lines and then I'll bet one dog on top of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And it jumps that winning value that you have. And truth be told, there are more huge upsets in the sport of MMA than anything I can think of, because you have a lot of established UFC talent and then guys coming into the UFC that really haven't been seen all that much. But if you look them up on SureDog, you get some familiar names. You're like, oh, he beat that guy. He beat that guy regionally. Then you're like, okay, this isn't a minus 450 like Vegas is saying it is.
Yeah, I think the real opportunities are especially like in the early prelims. I mean, if you're a hardcore, I think the real opportunities come on the prelims with like guys that you've watched on the regional stage that people aren't really all that familiar with. And that's why I love, working for CFFC, watching the products on UFC Fight Pass. You familiarize yourself with these athletes before they make it to the highest level. I think there's real opportunities there. I mean, once you're talking about guys at the highest level that, people have seen 20 times in the UFC, they've got it down pretty well. They understand what they're looking at, but I think there's opportunities a lot of times on the prelims if you've been doing the homework and paying attention to these guys when they were, competing on the regional stage before they make it to the UFC.
How good is UFC 281? UFC 281 has Frankie Edgar on it. It has Dan Hooker on it. I'm going to go all the way down to the opening fight of the prelims. Your broadcast partner, Andre Petrosky.
I mean, come on, man. We got some fantastic matchups on there. I mean, Dominic Reyes versus Ryan Spann. I mean, those
Man, you jumped the shark there on me. I was going to get into that one next.
bro, ranked light heavyweights. I mean, I'll let you lay that one out because I know you're excited about it. But yeah, dude, Frankie Edgar's retirement fight, man. Frankie Edgar's retirement fight. Look, a tough matchup in Chris Gutierrez to say it for sure. But I mean, Frankie Edgar, this dude, the word legend, we throw the word legend out there sometimes, and maybe it's not, maybe we're overusing it, but with Frankie Edgar, the dude is absolutely a UFC legend. I mean, doing it forever and doing it, in higher weight classes. I mean, just a great dude, man. To see
35,
Frankie Edgar
45, 55. He spanned 3 weight classes. And as his career went on, he went down in weight. Hardly ever see that.
No, man. And you think about the fights with Gray Maynard. I mean, absolutely legendary. So it'll be an honor to see Frankie Edgar do it one last time. And for him to do it, the Toms River, New Jersey guy doing it in Madison Square Garden for his last one. That's a phenomenal one. But yeah, Dan Hooker's on the Brad Riddell versus Hanato Moicano is going to be an absolute banger. Aaron Blanchfield versus Molly McCann is a great women's flyweight fight. As you said, my broadcast partner, Andre Petrosky, getting there with a great grappler in Wellington Tournament. So, I mean, that's going to be a great fight. But
that is the opening fight on the prelims.
Petrosky
is the opening fight on the prelims. That's how stacked this card is.
That's how deep this lineup is. And I'll let you get to it because I know you're loving that one. Dominic Reyes, Ryan Spann at light heavyweight.
For the strap, ranked number 7 in the world, Ryan Superman Spann. And he might be the most sandbagged 12th ranked fighter there has ever been, because at 205, if you guys have never seen this human, we want to talk about how Alex Pereira makes 185. How in the hell does Ryan Spann make 205? This guy is enormous. Plus, he's got the chops on the ground, on the feet. He can strike. He can wrestle. He can do everything. But guess what? Dominic Reyes can too.
Yeah, this is a great match. I'm kind of in this, must-win spot for Dominic Reyes. Meanwhile, you got Ryan Spann, who's been, as you said, kind of just outside the top rank, but really, an incredible record and an incredible skill set, an incredible frame. I mean, this is a big matchup at light heavyweight. Again, you talk about stakes. This is not a number 1 contender fight by any stretch of the imagination, but this is a big one in the division between two absolutely, huge dudes in there as well. So big fight here at 205 pounds. The winner really going to make a statement in their career, kind of a crossroads fights in certain ways. So this a lot of meaning here at 205 pounds.
And Ryan Spann has been around the game a long time. I remember watching him LFA versus jiu-jitsu legend. Zenith jiu-jitsu guy. Robert Drysdale.
Yes, I was thinking of Zenith. I'm like, who did he fight at Zenith? I had completely forgot he actually fought Robert Drysdale.
And Robert Drysdale, he hung with Robert Drysdale on the ground for 2.5 rounds. Ryan Spann is a specimen at 205. This could be that launching point to get him only top 10 fights. I mean, obviously he's running number 7th ranked Dominic Reyes right now, but another just completely fun fight. Is Dominic Reyes relevant anymore? We'll find out Saturday night.
Man, you got me going down memory lane right now. I'm taking right. I totally forgot that fight even happened. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And Dominic Reyes, man, this is must win. I mean, this dude was at the top of the division, right? But he's had some setbacks. He's had the layoff. I mean, he's got to win here. So this again, big moment for both these athletes for sure.
So I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm just saying, let's take champions, throw them out the window. The straps mean nothing. What fight are you looking forward to most this Saturday? From a strictly entertainment value.
I think the fight of the night ends up being Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. I think that's the one that ends up being the craziest, the wildest, the back and forth, the ebbs and flows. I think that ends up being fight of the night. So that if we're looking from a pure action inside the cage, start to finish, I think that's the one that people are going to be talking about afterwards. But man, you just but you just can't say that you're not excited for Adesanya versus Pereira. The storyline that is there, the history between them, the fact that the title, and really you can't, I mean, throw the title out. I mean, to me, of course, the UFC middleweight title means a lot, but it's not even about that, right? It's about two guys, one that holds 2 wins over, one that has a knockout that's saying, look, I'm daddy. You know what I mean? Like, I got you. I own you. I can win you every time out, versus Adesanya saying, no, man, I know you beat me before, but I can win this fight. I can absolutely win this fight. I can absolutely beat you. This is a different sport. Whether the title's on the line or not, that storyline, the history between these two human beings, the history between these two men, I mean, that's the one that's going to have you, the hairs on your arms standing up, the goosebumps as they're walking in. And who knows what Adesanya is going to do for him. I mean, he's always entertaining from the entrance, right? He does these great walk-ins and all that.
Is he all business Saturday night, or is he coming theatrics? What's he doing?
I kind of think he ought to be all business. I kind of want to hear that he got to the arena, 4 hours early so he could rehearse his walk-in or whatever. Like, bro, I want your mind set on Alex Pereira. So, maybe we don't get that pageantry, but something tells me we will. Adesanya is all about that show, man. He really thinks about the visuals and the artistry and sees it all as a product. So we'll see. But it's a great question, because to me, Poirier Chandler, is that fight starting? I'm just grabbing my chair and I'm like, oh, we're going to get at it. But Adesanya, the tension as the lights go down and Bruce Buffer is screaming in the names, and you're wondering what's going to happen. That's the one
Alex
where the tension's going to be there.
Throwing the bow and arrow strikes at him in the build up, in the introduction. He's going to be throwing it.
That's where the goosebumps are going to be. So Poirier Chandler is going to be 15 minutes of a car crash, but Adesanya and Pereira, that's going to be the one where the chills are setting in, and you're just thinking, what's
you're like, is this really happening? Is this really happening? So I do this when it's a fight that I am completely invested in, that I know it's a huge deal. So, Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler, I'm going to have my beer ready. I'm going to have my snacks, and I'm going to be just like sitting in front of my television, right? When that main event comes on, guess what? I don't care who the hell's at my house and what they think about it. All the lights go off in my house. And the only thing that True Blue, that's what I do for the big, big main events. I turn the lights off in my living room. And
I love it.
I make it feel like I am in that arena.
I love it. You got to get all the distractions aside. I need everybody to quiet down, please. I want to hear nobody talking. I'm watching this fight. Can't wait. Yeah, I love it, man. I'll be in Madison Square Garden on Saturday night, so I'll be there Cageside, and that feel that you get in those big, big moments like that, it's something special. And again, the UFC does such a great job of just building the whole product, but the lights go down, you get the full walkout, you get those moments, and then again, you get Bruce Buffer, the best in the game, setting it up like nobody else. I mean, the chills are going to be there on Saturday night. I absolutely cannot wait for that moment.
If everybody can't tell, John Morgan is fired up for this card. I'm fired up for this card. You can watch it, break it down. John is going to be at Madison Square Garden live. He's going to be tweeting in real time. Follow him, John Morgan _MMA. From the back seats of my living room, you can follow me at E_MacLife. I'm fired up. Other than MSG, do you got anything going on this weekend?
I've got the craziest week ever, and I'm looking forward to it, man. These are the things I live for. On Thursday, I will be in Tampa, Florida for CFFC 114 on UFC Fight Pass. Then I'm going to fly to Fort Bragg the next day. We're putting on Battle at Bragg. It's the first collegiate wrestling match ever to be on UFC Fight Pass, so I'm excited for that. It's North Carolina, it's Michigan, it's Campbell University. We're doing a wrestling meet. I cannot wait for that. Again, it's history being made. That's Friday. And then Saturday morning, I fly to New York and I head to Madison Square Garden for UFC 281. So it's 3 events on 3 nights in 3 different states. It's going to be a crazy week, but these are the moments we live for.
Do not risk it. Rent a car, drive from Fort Bragg. If you get delayed and stuck in an airport, man, I'm going to feel so bad for you. Do not risk it. Flight travel sucks right now. John Morgan, don't risk it, man. Dude, I'm living vicariously through you on Saturday night. If you miss this, not only it's going to break my heart.
Please don't even give that energy. Why are you even saying this? Right? It happened to me before. It happened to me. Maybe because it's already happened to me before, it won't happen again. The UFC in Dallas, in my hometown.
You hear that?
Stuck. I got stuck in Memphis. I ended up watching it from a hotel room. So don't even give that energy, Eric. What are you doing?
I just knocked on wood. I'm an a-hole. I shouldn't even have brought that into the universe. My bad. Hey, we are going to break it all down next week here, Cageside with John Morgan. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. We will see you next week and enjoy the fights.